out of that then even the deeper ethical questions come. The question of the utilitarian. You know, how many of you have heard of the term utilitarianism? It's the thought or school of thought that says if somebody is happy with something, then it's okay for them to do it or have it, or to define as good for them. It doesn't matter whether it affects you, but it matters that it makes them happy. There's this term called hedonism. The thought that it's the one goal of all humanity, only to pursue one thing, happiness. At the expense of many things, as long as you are happy, go for it. So there are questions of judgment in pursuit of happiness. How far should I express myself? If I feel like taking a drug will make me happy, that's my choice. I feed my pleasure and go the way of the flesh. As of whether it's destructive to me, it's none of your business. The hedonist would argue. So the utilitarian would say, is this good, for example, for the general public, the mass, the critical mass? If we are 100 people and 90 of us think that this is good for us, therefore, it is right for us. Whether it is wrong for the 10, it is right for the 9. Sorry, for the 100. For the 90, sorry. Yeah, 90 over 100. Yeah. So if it's wrong for the 10, but the 90 are agreeable with it, the utilitarian would say, that's okay. It's working. That's the foundation of democracy. If all of us think that this is the right way to go, it doesn't matter whether in truth it's the right way. If we have all agreed that it is, the majority of us agreed, then that goes for law or policy. And then you start to ask the harder questions, whether you can trust democracy as it has been designed to lead humanity to that perfect harmony and reconciliation of all things, touching truth, and leaves very hard questions. Personally, in my journey of understanding these things, I now even question, not that I have a problem with democracy, but I have questions on how democracy, absolute democracy, answers some of the hard questions. For instance, let's just say you have 10 people and 9 of them are mad, and 1 of them is sane. And you want to pass a policy where 9 people are mad and 1 is sane. One man said that when the madness of an entire nation disturbs a solitary mind, you could even assume that this solitary mind is the mad one. That a nation can get to a certain madness, that the 2-3 people who are normal start to look like they're the mad ones. Democracy. Those of you who think that it's really the answer, you're yet to understand many things. I have my reservations. That I could look at a nation one and single a nation one nation that perhaps, for example, is run by a monarch. Like say United Arab Emirates, right? It's a monarchical system, isn't it? And you go to one of the most democratic nations in the world like America, and they are shooting their presidents down. Are you seeing what I'm saying? That if I was to get a crime rate, just take a sample of an area in a very democratic nation and say a nation that might not seem democratic, and then we take a sample of 24 hours and just number the crimes in one nation against the other, you might be amazed. But you know, somebody will say, you don't know what you're saying. That's why I tell people that there are two ways of seeing things wrongly. One way, is if you are far from a thing, you might see something wrongly. For example, a billboard is far. You might see the words, but they're ambiguous. And then you're required, by principle, to come closer to be able to read. That's an easier place. But the harder one, and where I find that sometimes we get things wrong, is when something is so close. For instance, can you read a book when you put it here? Somebody might assume that, I'm right because I'm the closest to this issue. You don't know anything. For me, I'm a politician. We work in the system. There are many things you don't know. For you, speaking as a layman. And sometimes the perfect balance here is to really find the right vantage point of sight where you're not really so far not to see and not so near not to see. Who gets what I'm saying? I know people who judge issues wrongly because they are so in this thing. You've heard of people sometimes complaining in different parts of the world that our politicians are very inconsiderate. They don't even see, they say, the plight of people. It's as if they don't know that people are poor. It's as if they... And rightly so, it's because some of them are so close to the script that they might not see. Are you following what I'm saying? I'm starting to think that there's a deeper conversation that we must have. Because I have said before that the challenge with the present day Christianity, and this the Lord spoke to me very honestly, is that we're not a contemplative people. We don't actually sit down to allow conversations with God. That's why we don't find so much wisdom among the saints. Because we don't take time to really sit down with God to speak and educate us. We are conformed to this world. We've taken over its attitudes and ideals, its superficial customs, the Bible says. So there's harder questions there. There's harder questions there. You see God get Moses out of Egypt because there are things Moses will not see if he is in the palace. Who is getting it? So God has to take him outside for him to see right. You see God deliberately take Saul out of Jerusalem. He was a teacher of the law. And then he's taken into Damascus. And he still sees that even the vision there is not full. He pushes him further to Arabia. And when he spends those years in Arabia, he comes back a very changed man. Why? Because God took him out of the camp. In Galatians, he says that I did not go to Jerusalem. He says, neither went I up to Jerusalem to them which were apostles before me, but I went into Arabia and returned unto Damascus. 3 years, he goes to Jerusalem, now to reconcile issues with Peter, because God has taken him out so he would see. That's why in Hebrews it says, let us go without the camp, bearing his reproach. That there is a price to go out. There is a price, ladies and gentlemen, when a man zooms out. A huge price, because you lose so much right and privilege that some would rather actually keep than sacrifice for the sake of seeing better. Spiritual blindness is a very interesting thing, because it could happen to the man who appears or thinks to see better because he's close to something. Are you following what I'm saying? That is why it's important sometimes to listen to people who are outside their understanding and interpretation of the matters within. I'll give you an example. This average Ugandan, right? When I look at, for example, let me take, for instance, a nation like America. Great nation, great nation, great nation. And for most of the part, I think that some of them living in that nation don't see what some of us outside are able to see. Like they might rightly be able to see things on our nation that we're not able to see and appreciate. That an American can take a flight to come to Uganda, buy a property somewhere in Jinja, invest in a mine or something and build wealth in Jinja, and a young man born and bred there is leaving Jinja, getting a visa to go to South Carolina to work. So this man outside is like, how can you come here where there's no gold in the ground, yet you have the gold in your land? Why? Because he has a perspective that the Ugandan is not able to see. Now look at their politics, for example. Now we are talking judgment, right? You have set two presidents. One of them says, I have good policies on A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I support an agenda X, Y. And then there's one who says, I also have policies, but I have questions in some of the issues discussed in that agenda. For instance, that a child at 8 years old or 9 can be given hormone enhancement treatment because they don't feel fit in that body. 8 years. Oh, we're preparing them for their journey. At 8, they're allowed to change their clothes. At 8, they're allowed to start adjusting to the body they feel they belong to. Somebody says, no. One of the presidents says, I have a problem with that. Why? Because an 8-year-old is not yet mature enough to make that kind of decision. But that one is also judging the other culture that married off a child at 8. If you think that this 8-year-old is not yet mature enough to get married, how do you think then that they're mature enough to even understand who they are? Are you seeing the questions? Please follow me. So one of them is saying, this is what I think. Another one is saying, this is what I think. And everyone has their own supporters. Are you following what I'm saying? Somebody says, no, I think I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. That at 8, a child is allowed to say, am I this, am I he? No, let's wait for them to grow. No. Somebody says, no, let's start now the treatment now. Regardless of whether the parent agrees or they don't. Are you following what I'm saying? Regardless of whether the parent what? Agrees or they don't. In fact, I think it was one state, is it California, where now a child would be allowed to make their own decisions touching their life with the teacher, and they're not obligated, even the teacher is not obligated to tell the parent of the child. That some schools in that nation have more power over the children than the parents do. Because the child is a registered property of that nation. If we are educating this way, that's our choice. You have no choice over that 8-year-old. They could arrest you, even take the child away if they must. 8. So one president says it's okay, another one says it's not. Then one says it's okay for abortion. I think one of the terms of one of those presidents was even to a point where even an 8-month-old child could be removed, pre-birth abortion. The mother doesn't want, they get a syringe and they take it through into the heart of that child and stop it. And then one says, no, why should you kill this human being? And then this one is bad, don't kill a human being. But this one has a problem, that this one is building borders around the nation. How can you separate a mother from a child to choose? That's the one they say, put a bullet. That's the one the media will attack. So even us, they don't like us already. You get my point? Now, then the question comes, what if I have two individuals? One might have bad policies, but one has some moral values. One has good moral values, but has a few weak policies, say in finances and development. Then I have another one who has very good policies in finances and development, but has issues with moral values. His moral values I don't agree with. This actually now, some of you who are mature are starting to understand this, is going to become the new normal of debating politics. It's not going to be about, oh, this policy, that policy. It's going to be about, what do you believe, which agenda are you taking? Now today, no movie is acted without an agenda. No program is put on television without an agenda. Even the advertisement of a product like a car has to be advertised under an agenda. Are you following what I'm saying? And there are people here who don't have a clue. See, agenda, what is agenda? Don't worry, the Spirit of God will help you understand this. So, are you seeing where we're going? So now, for example, if you look at the American elections coming, it's going to be around two things: the LGBT agenda and the abortion issue. Those are the top. I'm telling you. So now I see this preacher who has a problem, for example, with Trump, and he supports, say, the other one, but he's a man of God. He's a man of God. And he says, okay, this Trump fellow doesn't like black people. He says, he doesn't like black people. Somebody will be like, why are you discussing politics? I'm actually not in politics. Some of you, if you're mature, you should be picking what I'm saying. Oh, he doesn't like black people. Okay, so let me just say he doesn't like me, but he agrees to my conviction of moral value. Do I vote a man who might not like me, but agrees with the conviction of my moral value, or I vote a man who loves me, but does not agree with my moral value? Now, you have the general mass that just for it supports everything. You're right, the roads are bad. No, you understand? You're right. In fact, they're charging us so much money in this, and then they scream. But now there's a wiser one who can say, okay, if this issue can stir this person to support this, then I could actually fund this to stir them up against an order, if in essence it will raise something that will provide for my agenda. And then you see Christians also moving by that wind. Judgment.